Hey everybody, and welcome to yet another painting tutorial of Nagini, Lord Voldemort's favorite pet. I'll be showing you how I painted Nagini according to some pictures I found, some video footage I saw, and I tried to make it as realistic as possible. So first I primed the model in a light gray color. You can use Wraithbone or any light gray variant. And the reason is that we're going to use contrast paints. But we start off with Steel Legion Drab for the base and part of the ruin that this snake is curling around. Steel Legion Drab is a nice old stony color, and I use it many times when painting old buildings, a bit of a yellowish stone look, and I find this fitting very nicely with the Hogwarts castle rocks. So I'm imagining that this is a part of a Hogwarts ruin from the final movie. Next, we're going to use Stegadon Scale Green, which is kind of a bluish green to paint the pattern on the snake's back. And I chose to only do it on its back because usually the belly of the snake has either a different pattern or is pale, or you can choose whatever you want. And what I'm trying to do here is paint a diamond-shaped shape to create a pattern on his back. And I started with the head because the snake is curling around the rock, so the further you go down, the more difficult it is to see what side is up. So I started here and left the belly untouched and try and create some diamond shapes on the scales of his back. At first, I thought I had to stick to one single scale, but I looked at some pictures of real snakes, and I noticed that they're not confined to scales, but rather a pattern spread among several scales or part of a scale. So feel free to do it however you think is most nice. There's no real good way of doing this, except that you want to have a more or less equal spread of the pattern alongside the entirety of the snake, of the skin. So as you can see here, I am adding some lines, rounding them off here and there, sticking only to the back, keeping the belly clean. So you can use another color there. Try and follow the shape of the snake's body. Now, as we've done this, I am now using Plaguebearer Flesh, a contrast paint, to cover the entire snake. So from its head to its tails, also the belly, which we're going to brighten up a little bit. This is a nice dark greenish snake tone. I like the color very much because it immediately shows a very nice result, and using the scales to create some proper shading. So it looks nice immediately. Make sure not to add it too thick because you want to keep seeing the Plaguebearer Flesh. You want to keep seeing the Stegadon Scale Green colors through this layer, which gives it a nice green bluish tone and blending in quite nicely. Once you've finished doing so, I'm using Xandri dust on a dry brush to very lightly create a lighter tone on the belly. So you want to keep the green but create a light shade. And Xandri dust has a nice yellow tone in it, which picks up the green to a brighter green, more to a yellowy green. You get some nice variations. You're not able to touch the belly everywhere, but make sure that you pick out all the parts that are visible. And now I used Castellan green to fill in the empty green diamonds with a darker green diamond shape. So to create the spots visible on the skin of a snake. It's a nice darker tone, but it blends in very nicely with the previous colors. And again, you can use any kind of green you like. If you want to have a darker version or a brighter one. Because of the base color, this green looks kind of brownish green, so to speak, which I like very much. It gives that real snakeskin look. At this point I gave all the stone parts a wash with Agrax Earthshade. Now for the eyes I used Ironjaw's yellow contrast paint, but you can use any kind of yellow. I would suggest a contrast paint because it's easy to paint and you can very easily clear part of it if you have mistakenly touched a little bit too much. Now for the base I added a highlight of Karak stone. I used a fairly large dry brush to touch the edges of the stones and also the floor. For highlighting this, I used Screaming Skull for an edge highlight of the stones and the cracks. It's a nice color that makes the stone pop out just a little more. I used it on the entirety of the model. Just find your edges, pick a side that you think the light is coming from, and highlight those edges to accentuate them even a little more. For the base, I created some lines on the edges of the tiles you can see here. And what I like about that is that it makes them stand out just a little more. I mean, we have darkened the recesses of those tiles. You can use some Agrex Earth shade, for example. And by doing so, you can sharpen them, so to say. As you can see here, just add some lines very carefully to leave the dark recesses as dark as possible. And just touch those very edges. And I also did that with the side of the model. Use the side of your brush to create a line surrounding the base, which gives it a nice, very thin highlight. And as a last detail, I'm adding palette witch flesh to touch just a few edges that stand out the most, that catch the most light, to create an extreme highlight. Now what I forgot to film, I forgot to turn on the camera, was the mouth, the jaw of this Nagini. And what I did there is I used Screaming Pink, which is a purplish color, for the tongue of Nagini, and I highlighted it with brighter pink, so you can either thin it down with some lighter color or use a brighter pink like Emperor's Children or something like this. For the teeth, I used Rock Art Flesh as a base color and highlighted it with Palette Witch Flesh to accentuate the tips of the teeth. And there we have it, the finished Nagini, looking fierce and dangerous. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos.